Hello, today is April 5th, 2023. I'm Sara Crifasi, and this is Staying Connected. Text messaging is a ubiquitous form of communication and an increasingly common way for consumers to connect to businesses and for businesses to connect with their customers. Its popularity, ease of use, and attention-grabbing alerts mean that most consumers immediately read nearly all text that they receive. But all of the benefits of texting have unfortunately made it a prime target for scammers, leading to invasions of consumer privacy, as well as fraud and identity theft. So recently, the Federal Communications Commission decided to address the growing problem of illegal and scam robotext. On today's podcast, I'm joined by Andrew Brown, managing partner of LB3 and the chairman of TC2, to talk about the latest plague of spammers hijacking text messages and to go over what enterprise customers should know to make sure that they aren't victimized by illegal text messaging. Andrew, thanks for joining today.
Thank you, Sarah. Very glad to be here.
So what's going on with illegal text messaging and why should enterprise customers care?
Well, as you know, over the past several years, the Federal Communications Commission has led a really aggressive effort to crack down on illegal robocalls. So the bad guys that used to interrupt our dinners with a robocall, they've now moved on to what is really a better and easier platform for them to use to push their frauds and scams, text messaging. And what is obvious to anyone that has a wireless phone is that illegal robotexts are on the rise, like explosively on the rise. And just to be clear, what we're talking about when we say illegal robotexts or spam text messages, those are the texts that are sent without the recipient's consent and usually for a nefarious purpose, like scamming you out of money or getting you to reveal personal information that can be monetized on the dark web or whatever. So the move to SMS or texting is not really a big surprise because texting is ripe for fraud for two basic reasons. First, it's really easy to spoof the caller ID on a text message. So the person receiving the text can easily be led to believe it's coming from someone that is legitimate. And second, consumers are generally more willing to interact with unknown numbers via text. There's just way less hesitation than when you get a phone call from a number you don't know, which most people just ignore these days.
Yeah, we definitely see that many spam texts either claim to come from legitimate businesses or even include links to phishing websites that are sometimes so well designed that they're nearly identical to valid websites, and in some cases, probably some of our clients' websites. And those then invite victims to input personal or financial information. So the illegal text spam problem can harm enterprises reputationally, and it can also harm them financially or with respect to privacy if employees are manipulated into giving up sensitive enterprise information.
Yeah, that's right. And that's become such a big concern for legitimate businesses, particularly large enterprises that use texting to communicate with their customers and clients.
Okay, so we've got a perfect storm of potential harm here, risk to goodwill and to businesses' internal operations. So what is the FCC doing to stop this problem?
Well, as you know, for the first time, the FCC is requiring wireless providers to block text messages that it calls highly likely to be illegal. So wireless providers will now be blocking text messages that claim to come from numbers that could not actually originate legitimate text messages. So numbers from invalid or unallocated or unused numbers in the numbering pool or numbers that are listed on a do not call list. Any text message that purports to come from one of those types of numbers is most likely illegal because no entity could use that kind of number to legitimately originate any text messages. And because a lot of consumers are accustomed to receiving text messages from known businesses that come from unknown or unidentified numbers, blocking these kinds of text messages should increase trust in the remaining legitimate communications transmitted via text.
All right, well, that seems like a good thing then, because the only beneficiaries of being able to text from those now blocked numbers would be the bad actors.
That's right. So that kind of blocking really shouldn't present any issue to enterprise customers. But what we are concerned about is when carriers inadvertently or overzealously block legitimate text messages, including those sent by legitimate businesses.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a problem. And we know that some of our clients have run into the issue of their legitimate texts getting blocked. So has the FCC done anything yet to address carriers' inadvertent text blocking?
Unfortunately, not much. They have taken very small, very cautious steps here, starting with the requirement that wireless providers establish a point of contact on their websites for legitimate text senders to communicate with if they believe that their legitimate texts are being blocked. And, it's pretty basic stuff. That point of contact might be with the wireless provider, or it might be with their messaging aggregator partner or their blocking partner. So the problem here is that legitimate texters might still be given the runaround when it comes to getting their legitimate text traffic unblocked. But as I mentioned, this is really just a starting point to get the process of unblocking legitimate text started, what is called remediation. The legitimate texter should also have ready what the commission calls documented objective evidence of blocking. But what that evidence isn't really defined. So it'll be up to enterprise customers to maintain appropriate records of who they are texting and when they're transmitting those texts that aren't going through.
And of course, one of the biggest issues that you and I have come across with our clients is how a legitimate texter even knows if or when their text message is
Mm.
blocked. It's like you're trying to prove something isn't happening. And the FCC kind of dodged that by not adopting a requirement for wireless providers to clearly notify texters when they block their texts.
Yeah, that's right. So the underlying carriers or their blocking providers might send different response codes indicating why the text message was blocked. And that just puts the burden on enterprise customers who will now need to pay attention and keep records of the various methods of blocking notice they receive, if any, so they can be on the lookout and reach out to the carriers to remediate inadvertent blocking if needed. This just isn't a great system for enterprise customers, to be honest, because without clear, consistent notice of text blocking, they may not know if they need to pursue remediation or if they need to contact customers with potentially time-sensitive information, by some other method than text.
And we should also point out that the actual remediation process itself is a bit of a mystery because it's not something mandated by the FCC and it could vary from wireless provider to wireless provider. And also, there's no mandated time limit within which the carriers have to resolve erroneous blocking complaints. But I know that we're working to get the FCC to establish a reasonable time period there for dispute resolution. So this kind of gets us to the question of what business customers can do then to maintain trusted, effective text messaging communications.
Yeah, we've coalesced around a few best practices here that are still evolving because this whole situation is evolving pretty quickly. But as a starting point, businesses should always get customers' consent to be texted. And from there, they should clearly communicate to customers through multiple methods. For example, at the point of sale, through email, on their website or app, if that enterprise will or will not ever be communicating by text message. So if a business never plans to text its customers, it should make that clear so that customers do not disclose potentially sensitive information to a scammer that might be claiming to be from that business.
And what about the businesses that do text their customers?
Yeah, so if a business does plan to contact customers via text, it should inform customers as to when or under what circumstances it will text customers and the types of information the enterprise will be sending and requesting. For example, a verification code, or whether they'll be sending account related information or just marketing material and links. They should also communicate the types of information the business will never transmit or request over text, and accordingly, the types of information that should never be shared by the customer over text. Also include the frequency of communications consumers should expect via text, how a consumer can opt in or out of text communications, how a customer can report suspicious or potentially fraudulent text messages to the business, the FCC, or their wireless provider, and lastly, actions that a customer can take if it believes that it may have responded to a fraudulent text message and actually disclosed sensitive information.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. So there's definitely a lot going on here, and businesses are going to have to really understand this issue and the things that they can do to outsmart the texting scammers. If you would like to find out more about any texting regulation or other regulatory issues that affect enterprise customers, you can reach out to Andrew directly. He and I represent an interesting group of business customers of ICT services that work on policy issues like these before the FCC. It's called the Ad Hoc Telecom Users Committee, and we would be happy to discuss how your company might fit in if you're interested. And if you have any text message specific questions, or you'd like to discuss other ICT needs with Andrew or me or any of our LB3 and TC2 colleagues, don't hesitate to give any one of us a call or shoot us an email. You can also stay current by subscribing to Staying Connected, checking out our websites, and following us on LinkedIn.